Kike, I hope your family dies and burns in hell. Glory to Hamas. Hamas are freedom fighters. I hope Tel Aviv gets bombed. What's your number? Show me your arm. Will anti-Semitism be covered in ethnic studies? No. How do you fit 6 million Jews in a Volkswagen? In an ashtray. What is the difference between pizza and Jews? The pizza doesn't scream if you put it in the oven. All of these were said by students and teachers at schools around the Bay Area.
How did it make you feel?
Sad, bit hopeless to see history repeating itself yet again. But also motivated to speak up and do something about it. I always wanted to be an American. When my family made the difficult decision to emigrate from the Soviet Union, they realized they had to leave everything behind. My parents were both physicians. My mom, she just finished saving a child's life, and on her way home, as she's walking, someone spat in her and called her a dirty Jew. She said, I do not want my daughter to grow up having this as her norm. My parents were ecstatic when we finally were free in America. I was that poor immigrant kid who didn't speak English. So I tried my hardest. I watched a lot of TV, which I loved to learn about the different cultures. But I never felt anti-Semitism growing up. We woke up that morning in disbelief. It really felt like medievalism 2.0, but seeing the complete disregard from folks here, all the support for the violence. To see what is happening in my kids' schools, the fact that my parents sacrificed everything to come here so I wouldn't have to suffer, and now my kids, I'm watching them suffer.
Every place has a story. The Bay Area's story is one of nonconformity. The American dream. Go west, young man.
I'm Steve Jobs from Apple Computer. We're very glad to be here tonight.
A place where everybody belongs.
We celebrate our diversity.
How then did anti-Semitism explode in such a place?
Welcome to our Wednesday, November 15, 2023 regular board meeting of the Board of Trustees of the Sequoia Union High School District.
Sorry. And Superintendent Crystal.
All right, I'm going to speak on her behalf. It's okay. Tonight I'm speaking as a parent of two Woodside students. Clearly, it is offensive. At a quick glance, it is a swastika. Had that graffiti been offensive to any other minority group, there would have been a stronger reaction from the district and administrators. Our district too often has turned a blind eye to anti-Semitism.
This week is United Against Hate Week, and I believe that I speak for the whole board when I say our commitment to stand united against hate in any form against any person for any reason.
It's worrisome to see the trend of more hate rather than less hate. When I open things like Instagram and I see kind of my peers and students that I see every day walking across the halls, I see them posting things online that is definitely hate speech and definitely anti-Semitic.
They spent the board meeting talking about microaggressions when we have explicit anti-Semitism. So how do you do DEI training, these professional developments that we're spending hundreds of thousands of dollars on, and not get the basics covered? And our Jewish students are being gaslighted.
Why couldn't people, after more than half a century of diversity efforts, easily condemn anti-Semitism?
Anti-Semitism has been viewed as the longest hate because it's been around for thousands of years. Anti-Semitism has longevity because it is a conspiracy theory.
Anti-Semitism always rises when people resort to scapegoating. The Crusades, the Black Death Plague, Nazi Germany, and now today.
Israel murdered their own people on October 7th.
Calling Hamas a terrorist organization is ridiculous, racist.
I support the right of Palestinians to resist occupation, including through Hamas.
There's always been cause in the eyes of the anti-Semite to scapegoat Jews over their roles in society. Some would argue that that's because the Jew also reminds the world of what is moral, of what our responsibilities are to each other, and they want to live in an immoral or amoral world.
The Bay Area is known for its high-tech wealth and general sophistication. If anti-Semitism is the symptom of a deeper problem, what is that problem? Part of the answer is here. The school board met to vote on whether or not to restore the honors classes that had been eliminated in the name of equity.
I think continuing to offer the advanced classes is very important because we should teach our kids that if you're bright and you're willing to work hard, you can achieve.
We do not feel that our kids have been held back by the recent course changes.
The school district had, over the course of around 8 years, without talking to the community and without the specific approval of the board, taken away a lot of honors classes such as AS English 1, AS Chemistry, AS Physics, AS Biology.
The only way to offer a student the possibility to do so is to give them honor classes to help them prepare for AP classes. One size doesn't fit all.
It's discriminating to say that certain students are too smart to be in the class with students who do not come from a high education.
The primary motivation of detracking is it's supposed to be kind of the solution for the achievement gap. Why are certain demographics signing up for honors classes a lot more than other demographics?
The loudest voices are often the most ignorant, and that being loudest doesn't make you more worthy of consideration or respect. Acknowledge the white fragility in the room and do better. Thank you.
Menlo Atherton High School has lost more honors classes than any school in the district. One reason why? It's feeder schools. Cesar Chavez Middle School is based in East Palo Alto, a lower-income, working-class, and largely immigrant neighborhood. In the school year of 2022, 13.7% of its students met or exceeded grade-level standards in English. In math, it was 3.7%. On the other side of Menlo Atherton High is La Entrada Middle School, located in an affluent neighborhood. 84.5% of its students met or exceeded the grade level standard in English. In math, it was 80.5%. In 2023, Cesar Chavez was 4 years behind the national average in math, and La Entrada was 4 years ahead, an 8-year gap.
My community really believes in pushing forward the movement of equity. How can we make these spaces more equitable for all of our students?
The difference between normal and honors was definitely very significant, and those normal classes are seen around the school as kind of very easy and very fluff classes.
My personal experience, in middle school, I wasn't being challenged enough. So when I finally got to high school, it was a relief being able to take classes that I felt like were challenging. Race and education should never be in the same sentence or in the same debate.
When they take away an honors track, what it means is that students from these other districts are sitting in the same classroom as our district. And I'm not sure why that is very upsetting to some.
What no one is saying out loud is that racial equity played a role in the removal of honors classes. Cesar Chavez is 80% Hispanic. La Entrada is mostly white and Asian.
Someone with a 5th grade level of reading is now in the same class as someone with actually a 10th or 11th grade reading. We're trying to correct problems at the high school level where the root problems are actually at the elementary school level. In the name of equity, we're creating more inequity.
The last school board meeting lasted until 1 a.m. as the community debated the issue of honors classes. Today, the same board was to vote on the question of restoring the honors classes. Instead, they got sidetracked over the question of whether or not they had received enough input from the community.
I personally know of students that can pay and did pay that $500 to $2,000 to take advanced chemistry, to take advanced or honors physics. By not offering that opportunity, which students are we really hurting?
What I am struggling with, and although I disagree with Jacob, I think we can't assume that a certain percentage of people agree or disagree because we don't have earnest feedback from communities.
Many high schools across America placed racial equity before merit. Even the crown jewel of San Francisco, Lowell High School.
When I was first placed in just regular classes, and I did not feel too challenged. And even though my English wasn't very good, my parents went and insisted that I get placed in, at the time, honors was called a GATE program. And the principal laughed. Lowell, as hard as it was, and it was hard, it opened up the doors for college, and now obviously I'm a physician. So I do think that I'm the epitome of the American dream. I don't think that's what kids are being taught today. They're not being taught about the American dream. In fact, they're being taught that that's a lie.
The San Francisco Unified School Board felt there was not equitable representation among the races at Lowell High. There were too many Asians.
Kevin Bogus, president, thinks there are too many Asians in SFUSD.
If you're in 6th grade and you're reading at 2nd grade level, what are you doing in class? Sleeping.
Democratic Socialists of America who want to abolish merit in San Francisco, are we going to let that happen? No!
Right after George Floyd, it seemed that there was an injustice that had occurred with what had happened to George Floyd, but then that injustice, just like napalm, triggered injustices throughout all of our school boards across the nation. all these merit-based high schools were suddenly under attack by the progressive members of the Board of Education who had decided that grades and test scores were racist.
In order to fix a problem, you have to figure out what the problem is.
Our African American students, only 10% can pass the 8th grade admissions or the standardized test, and you're worried about roll. Your policies are racist. You are disgusting, all of you.
The school board literally had spent 10 years removing algebra from the 8th grade, trying to dismantle STEM programs, dismantle the ability of students to take AP classes. What ended up happening under lottery admission was that at the end of the first semester, we had at least 200 students with at least one D or one F, and they were struggling. The San Francisco School Board weaponized everybody's skin color, and you were either an oppressor or the oppressed.
That is a slippery slope, because when an Asian person is attacked on the street, when they are killed, who cares? Because there's too many Asians.
The progressive dogma, the ideology of promoting diversity is really creating a system of division and hatred. We see the anti-Semitic movement growing in the United States. We celebrated not only our diversity, but we've forgotten to celebrate what we have in common. We are Americans.
But are we? Have we betrayed the promise of the civil rights movement by making race our guiding light once again? Isn't it this move to tribalism that has set the stage for today's anti-Semitism? Back at the school board meeting, instead of voting on the honors classes, the debate over community input continued.
We heard a public comment from a member of our community, not tonight, but earlier, who also wrote an op-ed for local papers. He described himself as a brown immigrant who spent the first few years of his life in this country in a crowded, low-income studio apartment. His article included the sentence, and this really stuck with me. Many parents of children under this board's charge remain silent for fear of accusation of racism.
The notion that you take a high-achieving kid and bring him into this mixed-level class for the sake of the kids with an achievement gap to help teach them better educational values, what to value about education, and then in the classroom, emphasize white, I'm going to use the language, white notions of success.
I know this fear is real because I've heard from people who've had it happen to them.
Success and achievement are not ethnic. I find that insulting. What does that mean that, like, I'm brown, but I have white values? Stop it. Just stop.
We may be hearing from the vocal minority, but I don't think it's because most other parents don't agree with them, but because I think other parents are hesitant to come forward with their opinions.
We have delivered a very poor educational product for several decades now. And instead of addressing why, it's just easier to blame inequities. Kids are certainly not getting more educated, but we all are getting more fearful, more angry, and more tribal.
I started noticing the equity thing come up when this very first thing was when they said, no, the kids of color, we're going to reduce the amount of kids of color who are going to get suspended because of the years of racism sometime around the Obama administration is when I started noticing the change. Started noticing the kind of administrators that were getting hired. And then slowly, they started bringing out the kids with special needs, special education. Little by little, what they would do is they were starting to mainstream them, and then pretty soon they just said complete 100% mainstream in the name of social justice. And I thought it was injustice to some of these kids because they could not handle it.
So my daughter sends me what she did at school today, and she played a celebrity guessing game. I asked her what the point of the activity was, and she honestly has no idea, other than she was shown pictures of celebrities and she had to guess what the race was.
They want to get rid of that honors classes. And remember that honors classes is a way of showing if I work hard, I want to advance myself, I have the opportunity to do well here in America. Well, they're trying to take that all away.
Yeah, Mom. I thought this room was supposed to be air conditioned, man.
The grading scale they're trying to push onto teachers. They're calling it standard-based grading. And this is where an A is 100% to 80% is an A, 80% to 60% is a B, which is so embarrassing to me as a teacher.
My daughter came home with another homework assignment, designing race. How was race created? Why was race created? And by definitions, they want us to discuss settler colonialism, the social hierarchy. Do you think Black people are faster than white people? What are your thoughts? What does it mean to be Black?
Some teachers do not allow their kids to express in the classroom their own opinions. The author is saying this, you describe why you disagree or why you agree. The kids are being not allowed to do that because your thinking doesn't go along with the mass, the general rule or the community way of thinking. They talk about community in the classroom, that teachers need to build a community inside of the classroom.
My daughter's a senior in high school. She took AP European History and AP US History. She did not have one lesson on the Holocaust.
They want everything to be along the same lines of thinking, it seems, or the same ways of feeling about certain things. The government is going to take care of you. You don't need to worry about honors, being in the honors track. You know, you just belong in here with all the rest of society right here. And everybody's going to feel well. Everybody's going to have money. Everybody's going to be treated the same. Everybody now all of a sudden gets a trophy. Everybody here deserves that passing grade. And if that doesn't sound Marxist, I don't know what else. You know, you need to look and study the history because that's what's happening here under our noses here in America.
At the school board meeting, the fear grows that the issue of honors classes will not be voted on.
At this moment, in both my and a lot of other seniors across the district time of applying to college and seeking letters of recommendation, some students they don't feel safe speaking out on such an issue.
Students are scared that this may result in the issue just being kind of like put in the parking lot and not revisited again.
I think if we actually put it on the calendar versus put it in a parking lot, that would be different because then there is not an infinite, we will talk about it.
Lowering educational standards in the name of equity certainly contributes to the ignorance that feeds anti-Semitism. But ignorance alone doesn't explain the frightening righteousness behind the current wave of anti-Semitism.
Governor Newsom signed a bill today that makes California one of the first states in the nation to list ethnic studies as a graduation requirement for all public high school students.
I envisioned ethnic studies to be kind of how I grew up. You know, in my poor little circle, there was the Indians, the Blacks, the Asians, the Russians, the Jews that went over each other's houses, ate each other's food. This was entirely something different. Everything was about power.
After October 7th, a teacher at Menlo Atherton High, Chloe Gentile Montgomery, gave a presentation on the Israeli-Palestinian conflict in her ethnic studies and world history class. She introduced the concept of the dominant narrative that belongs to the oppressor class and the counter-narrative that belongs to the oppressed class.
Liberated ethnic studies is based on a paradigm of the idea that the world is divided into the oppressed and the oppressors. And when you put that in front of kids, what happens is that kids automatically want to be defined as the victim.
She then asked, what is happening in Israel and Palestine? And what are the dominant and counter narratives?
What happens is when you get this version, this brand of ethnic studies into classrooms, it becomes morphed into something entirely different and almost the opposite of what people intend. Violent and radical figures are elevated and lionized as the heroes, and downplayed or even omitted are the role models that we would expect. So you don't learn about Martin Luther King Jr., you don't learn about Thurgood Marshall, you don't learn about Rosa Parks.
The teacher then sets the table with notes that exclude mention of Hamas as a terrorist group, and that makes the false claim that Hamas mainly attacks soldiers and also some civilians, when civilians were in fact the main target.
The objective is to overthrow a system. It's very different from let's all work together to fix aspects of our system.
Beginning in the late 1960s, the ideology began to set into California universities. I think it was first San Francisco State University, if I'm not mistaken.
Under the umbrella of the Third World Liberation Front, Asian, Latino, and Native American students, as well as progressive whites, joined forces with the Black Student Union.
One of the major objectives was to start a school of ethnic studies.
This is the first time in the history of all existing colleges in the United States that we have dissolved class barriers between people of the third world.
In the name of equity, to remove honors classes, it is all directly related to this liberated ethnic studies notion of victimhood. What happens is if we lower the standards, then good news, the student can succeed. But it also impacts the students that could be doing better, because it's telling them the better you do, the more oppressive you are.
Ethnic studies was in California, jumped the lab into the largest societies, devising curricula for K through 12 public schools, so they can take their ideas about settler colonialism and about critical consciousness, and they can indoctrinate a generation of activists.
Every year, if you teach a kid enough times that they are a victim of the system, or they are an oppressor and need to change their ways to be closer to the victim, eventually it sinks in.
Miss Gentile Montgomery then establishes Israel as the oppressor, the dominant narrative, showing a false map of Palestine in all green, and then Israel stealing the land over the years. She then falsely quotes the UN as saying that the creation of Israel is illegal.
It emphasizes that it's important to discuss the current apartheid in Israel.
Generation, they will take all of your places and ensure Israel falls.
That it's important to discuss the genocide and the ethnic cleansing that goes on in Israel.
Titus, you can't hide. We charge you with genocide.
That it's important to make clear the connections, this is a quote, between the struggle for Palestinian rights and the struggles of indigenous Black and brown communities, by incorporating it into discussions of criminalizations of youth, deep dive into Native American history in your area, and connecting it to settler colonialism in Palestine. Instead of seeing Israel as a prime example of liberation in our time, of an indigenous people returning to a land, instead, Israel becomes the boogeyman.
What is the cost of teaching ideological lies in the classroom? Several parents, Jewish and non-Jewish, complained about the lesson taught by Ms. Montgomery and others to the school board. The same board that was now voting on restoring the honors classes.
But right now, not doing anything is having no board direction. So if that's what we want to do, I'll respect that as a board, but I think we have to formalize that in some way. That's my only point.
Would that motion also have time for like a study session, time for public comment, or would it be solely administrators presenting the plan?
We would not decide that now. That would be up to the board president and myself when we agenda plan.
Okay, so I will make that motion. Does anyone want to second it? Let's take a vote on that.
At first, it seemed like the most anticlimactic climax. Nothing happened, but everything happened.
Yesterday was a major delay tactic. The board refused to go on record with an actual vote. The problem is the current president, who actually believes in honors and academic standards. That was his last meeting. The new president that will be starting, I don't believe has any intention of bringing honors back to this district. So nothing was accomplished yesterday. It was a major delay tactic. It was political, and I don't think anything's gonna change in the right direction with this school.
Things got worse.
Additional context and nuance to the slides during class, nuance that is missed when slides are sent anonymously without the context of what actually went on in my classroom when the lesson was given.
Among many falsehoods included in the lesson, it taught that Israel, the country that I and my children are citizens of, is illegal and heavily implied it should not exist.
The meeting collapsed into tribalism. A student held up a sign that read, "Let's not forget that the IDF lied about the beheading of 40 babies, provoking a father whose family in Israel was severely impacted by October 7th.
We are not doing this. This is our, sir, this is our meeting. No.
This is the turmoil that we have been searching for all along.
Against or whoever. We have had meetings like, sir,
The turmoil that grows in the Trojan horse of DEI that permits anti-Semitism. A turmoil that arises out of a shift in morality within our society.
You're calling them freedom fighters. Right.
Moving away from the individualism of the Judeo-Christian values toward the tribalism of the oppressed oppressor ideology has created for America a new morality.
I believe Israel has no right to exist. I believe the United States has no right to exist.
A morality that values people of color over character.
I believe every settler colony who has committed genocide against native peoples, against indigenous people, has no right to exist.
A morality that demonizes whites as the oppressors, including Jews, as well as the white adjacent Asians.
Do you understand that dehumanization is part of anti-Semitism?
A morality that justifies anti-Semitism.
Again, it depends on the context.
A morality that offers protections to the Ms. Montgomerys of America and makes this teacher fear for his job.
Stand and Deliver was a very important movie for me because I was going into teaching. I wanted to be like him. You know, at the end, when you see the character Angel, they're listing the names of the kids who passed the AP exam.
Fuentes, Rafaela, 4. Javier Perez.
And you see this kid who probably had no hope for any kind of future growing up in a gang environment, in a barrio Hispanic neighborhood, and getting a 5. Love America, cherish America, understand what America stands for. And America stands for the opportunity that you are given here in this country to make it great. But you have to put in the work. Nobody's going to give it to you.
If anti-Semitism is the symptom of a deeper problem, then it is that too many of us Americans have forgotten how to live in freedom.
The American dream is about our personal agency and that we can overcome hardships and that, you know, as bad as things are, you find the silver lining and you bring yourself up. That's why Jews are hated so much, is because we refuse to be victims. Even with my daughter going down the hall and someone screaming kike, no.
If we lose the opportunity that the United States provide, we have nothing. We're back in medieval times where the kings stay kings and the peasants stay peasants.
Being able to succeed despite not having anything when you're born. You know, making something of yourself from nothing. That's what we want to instill in our kids. The grit, the resilience that makes up America. That's why my family wanted to come here and leave everything behind for this freedom that is quickly being taken away from us.
Too many of us have forgotten how to be Americans.
Look around, what I found, beautiful treasures. Look around, what I found, think I found my new forever. Look around, what I found, beautiful treasures. Look around, what I found, think I found my new forever. Life is a glass jar, open the lid and fill it up with memories. It's like a fast car, slow it down, enjoy the scenery. Don't forget to think through all the things in your mental. You can free yourself when you know yourself. Gotta